The European Union has agreed to extend sanctions on Russia for another 6 months, targeting more than 2,500 individuals and entities, including President Vladimir Putin. The move was confirmed on Friday, just ahead of a Monday deadline, after Hungary and Slovakia dropped earlier demands to remove certain names from the blacklist. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas announced the extension on social media, stating that Brussels is finalizing a new sanctions package. She noted that it could include additional restrictions on Russian oil sales, shadow oil tankers, and banks. "We'll keep choking off the cash for Putin's war," Kallas wrote. The 6-month renewal is a routine measure since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. However, Hungary, seen as Moscow-friendly, has repeatedly pushed for some individuals to be removed from previous sanction lists. The extension comes amid heightened tensions in Eastern Europe. NATO jets recently shot down Russian drones over Poland, an EU member state, prompting strong condemnation from Brussels. EU Council President Antonio Costa and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called the attacks reckless, while von der Leyen announced work on the EU's 19th sanctions package, which includes a faster phase-out of Russian fossil fuels.
But we have all seen what Russia means by diplomacy. Putin refuses to meet President Zelensky. Last week, Russia launched the largest number of drones and ballistic missiles in a single attack. Yesterday, there was a missile attack on a village in Donetsk, targeting people waiting to pick up their pensions. More than 20 were killed. And just today, we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahid drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland. Putin's message is clear, and our response must be clear too. We need more pressure on Russia to come to the negotiation table. We need more sanctions. We are now working on the 19th package in coordination with partners. We're particularly looking at phasing out Russian fossil fuels faster. We're looking at the shadow fleet and at third countries. And at the same time, we need more support for Ukraine. No one has contributed as much as Europe. Close to 170 billion euros of military and financial aid so far, and more will be needed. And it should not only be European taxpayers who bear the brunt of this. This is Russia's war, and it is Russia that should pay.
Peace efforts being promoted by U.S. President Donald Trump have also faced obstacles, with the Kremlin showing little willingness to negotiate.
What we've done has not been done. A lot of people, even the people that are not necessarily lovers of President Trump, and some of them are right there in the fake news, but they said that nobody's done what we've done in 7 months, a little more than 7 months. When you think of it, we stopped 7 wars. And the war that I thought was going to be the easiest is probably the most difficult. That's the Ukraine and Russia. I thought that would be easier, the relationship with President Putin, all of that. It didn't matter. It's ended up being probably the most difficult. But we stopped wars. One was going on for 31 years. They said it was unstoppable. I got it done in about 2 hours. Another one, 35 years, and another one, 37 years. And we got them all done. But we got 7 of them done. We ended up stopping the potential nuclear disaster in Iran with, I think, one of the greatest military trips ever taken. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We flew the B-2 bomber. They flew for 36 hours. Not a single mishap, not a single problem. And those pilots were great. I invited them to the Oval Office a month ago, and they came in handsome They look just like Tom Cruise. They look just, I'm telling you, they were great. They were, every one of them, and they were looking forward to that mission. I said, did you really want to go? They said, sir, we've been waiting for 22 years. They said for 22 years, their predecessors have been practicing 3 to 4 times a year that mission because they knew someday they had to take it out. And they said, no other president had the courage to let us go, sir, and you did. I said, were you happy or unhappy about that? And they could not have been happier. They loved it. They were so disappointed when I heard one of the news outlets give the information as to when we were taking off, when we were landing. I called our great General Kane. As you know, he's done a phenomenal, I don't know if he's here, but he did a phenomenal job, and he's done a phenomenal job, head of the Joint Chiefs now, because he wiped out ISIS. So, you know, General Kane, I was told it would take 4 years to defeat ISIS. He did it in 4 weeks. I said, he's my guy for the top. And he really knows how to win. But what we've done has been incredible. I'm so happy about that.
The EU says it remains united in support of Ukraine and in defense of its member states, signaling that financial and diplomatic pressure on Russia will continue. The latest sanctions extension reinforces the bloc's commitment to halting Russian aggression while seeking a long-term resolution to the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Ukraine was dragged into NATO, and now we see that European leaders speculating about security guarantees for Ukraine are almost exclusively concentrating on deploying their troops in Ukraine. And many of them are still insisting on Ukraine's accession to the European Union. But we see that the European Union, that used to be an economic association, is now turning into a military political bloc with their constant aggressive statements and decisions. How can you comment on this situation? I concur with those who say that every country has the right to choose how to ensure its security, and it's true for every country, including Ukraine. But it also means that no country can ensure its security at the expense of another country, such as Russia. We always opposed the idea of Ukraine becoming member of the North Atlantic Alliance, but we never doubted its right to engage in its economic activities in any way it likes, and that includes EU membership. The question is, Russia and the United States are discussing peaceful settlements, and the formula of security guarantees in exchange of territories is being peddled around. Now, what is meant, and by that, who should be the guarantor, who should be taking part in elaborating these guarantees? And is there any meaning in meeting Zelensky right now? Can any agreements be reached at such a meeting? Now, what was the first part of your question? Well, there is a speculation right now that there is a formula of security that proposes exchanging security for territories. No, this was never discussed in such a form. Security guarantees is a natural thing, and we have always assumed that every country must have security guarantees and a security system, and that includes Ukraine. But no territory exchange is assumed here. And we're not fighting for territories, we're fighting for the rights of people who live in the territories, for their rights to speak their own language, to practice their culture and traditions that were passed down by their previous generations. So that is what we're talking about, first of all. And if those people choose through democratic electoral procedures, through referendums, to be part of the Russian Federation, we must respect this decision. That is democracy. It's something that those who are forgetting that should remember. Now, the first articles of the UN Charter also directly mention the right of the peoples to self-determination. But we have never linked security guarantees to territories. Now, one can say these are related topics, but we never discussed that in a package, and this was not the way it was discussed in Anchorage. As to potential meetings with Mr. Zelensky, now, I already said that I've never ruled out such a meeting, but whether this can be meaningful. In accordance with Ukrainian constitution, now there may be different opinions about this, but you can just go and read the actual text of the constitution. There is no way to extend a president's term. There is no tool in the constitution to do that. After you serve your 5 years as president, your time is over. There is a provision that says that under martial law, elections shall not be held. That is true. But it doesn't mean that the president's term is prolonged. His term runs out, and his authority is passed down to the Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, including his authority as the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. So what should the current government do if they want to be legitimate and take part in the settlement process? They should hold a referendum in accordance with the Ukrainian constitution. Any kind of territorial issues are resolved through referendums, as far as I remember. But you cannot have a referendum under martial law. That is also enshrined in the constitution.